Alex's heart was pounding as they sprinted through the dimly lit hallways of the safe house. Lyra led the way, her movements quick and graceful. The man behind them kept a lookout, his eyes scanning every shadow. The air felt thick with tension, the weight of their situation pressing down on them. The syndicate was closing in fast. Alex could hear the faint sound of boots echoing in the distance. They didn't have much time. "We need to get to the vehicle," the man said urgently, his voice low. "It's not far, but we have to stay quiet." Lyra glanced over her shoulder, her face hard. "Keep moving. Don't stop." Alex, breathless and still in shock from everything he had learned, nodded. It felt like the world was closing in on him. The truth was bigger than he had ever imagined, and now it was up to him and Lyra to expose it. They reached the back door of the building, and the man pushed it open just enough to peek outside. He scanned the area, making sure the coast was clear. When he nodded, they slipped into the alleyway. Alex's mind was still spinning. Everything about this situation felt surreal. He had never imagined that his life would be turned upside down like this, and now he was part of something so much bigger than himself. He was fighting for the truth, fighting to make sure humanity wasn't kept in the dark forever. They moved swiftly, weaving through the alleyways, the shadows their only cover. The distant sounds of agents searching for them grew louder, but they didn't stop. There was no turning back now. As they reached the end of the alley, a black van pulled up, the engine purring quietly. The man opened the door and gestured for them to get in quickly. Lyra was the first to jump inside, followed by Alex. The door slammed shut behind them, and they were off. Alex looked at Lyra, his heart still racing. "What happens now?" Lyra didn't answer immediately. She was staring out the window, her expression unreadable. Finally, she turned to him. "Now we make sure the syndicate can't keep the truth hidden anymore. We find allies who will help us get the message out." The man who had driven the van looked at them from the front. "There's a place we can go, a safe house for people like us. We'll lay low there for a while, regroup, and figure out our next move." Alex nodded, though his mind was filled with doubt. He wasn't a fighter. He didn't know how to stop an organization as powerful as the syndicate, but he knew one thing for sure. He couldn't let Lyra face this alone. As the van sped through the night, Alex looked out the window, lost in thought. The truth about extraterrestrial life was out there, and if he and Lyra could find a way to expose it, everything would change. Humanity could no longer live in ignorance. But the road ahead was uncertain. The syndicate wouldn't give up easily. They would come after them with everything they had. And there was no guarantee they would win. Alex glanced at Lyra, who was staring ahead, her jaw clenched with determination. She was a warrior in every sense of the word, and he was standing by her side. "We'll do this together," he whispered, more to himself than anyone else. Lyra turned to him, her expression softening for a moment. "Yes, we will. We have to. The truth is too important." As the van disappeared into the darkness, Alex knew that their fight had only just begun. The truth was out there, and no matter how difficult the journey, they would make sure it was known. Together, they would take on the syndicate, and together, they would bring light to the hidden world. The room was cold, dimly lit by a single hanging light. Alex sat against the wall, trying to catch his breath. His heart was still racing from the narrow escape. They had made it through the alleyways and into the hidden safe house, but the danger was far from over. His mind raced as he thought about everything that had happened in the last few days. He had gone from an ordinary man to someone caught in the middle of a fight for truth and survival. Lyra sat across from him, her eyes scanning the room, alert as always. The man who had been guiding them had disappeared into another part of the building to check on their escape routes. It was just the two of them now, and Alex couldn't shake the feeling that something big was about to happen. "Are we safe here?" Alex asked, his voice low. Lyra didn't answer right away. She was staring at the floor, lost in thought. After a long pause, she looked up at him, her eyes serious. "For now," she said, "but we can't stay here long. The syndicate will be looking for us. We need to move again soon." Alex nodded, but a new question weighed on his mind. "Lyra, why did you crash here? Why Earth? And why me?" Lyra's eyes softened, and for the first time, Alex saw a glimpse of the vulnerability she usually kept hidden. She leaned forward, her voice quiet but full of meaning. "Alex, the truth is, I didn't crash here by accident. I came to Earth because I was trying to escape something much bigger than myself. The Syndicate isn't just a human organization. They have deep connections with other beings, powerful beings who want to keep control of everything." Alex listened intently, his mind racing. He had suspected there was more to this than just Lyra being on the run, but hearing it from her made everything feel even more real. "The Syndicate," Lyra continued, "has been controlling information about extraterrestrial life for decades. But there are others who want to expose the truth. My people, the ones who sent me, they're fighting back. I was supposed to help them, help expose the truth before it's too late. But something went wrong. The Syndicate found me." Alex's chest tightened as he tried to absorb everything she had said. "So you came here to stop them? To warn Earth about what's really out there?" "Yes," Lyra said, nodding. "But there's more. My people, they have technology, knowledge that could change everything. It could help humanity protect itself, but only if it's shared in the right way. And the Syndicate is trying to stop that from happening. They're afraid of what would happen if the truth came out. They think humanity isn't ready for it." Alex could feel the weight of her words, the truth about extraterrestrial life, about what was really happening behind the scenes. It was bigger than he had ever imagined. He had never thought of himself as part of something this important, but now he was tangled in it, whether he liked it or not. "But why me?" Alex asked again, his voice trembling slightly. "I'm just a normal guy. I don't have any special abilities, any knowledge." Lyra shook her head, interrupting him. "You don't need special abilities to make a difference, Alex. You've already done more than most would. You believed in me when no one else would. You helped me when you didn't even know who I was or what I represented. That means something. You're more important than you think." Alex felt a wave of emotion, a mix of confusion and gratitude. "But I'm just trying to survive. I don't know how to fight this battle. I'm not like you." Lyra's expression softened. "You don't have to fight like me. You just need to keep standing by the truth. Help me expose it. And together, we'll give people the chance to understand what's really out there." Alex looked into her eyes, and for the first time, he truly understood. This wasn't just about survival. It was about making sure that the world knew the truth, no matter the cost. Just then, the man returned, his face grim. "We've got trouble," he said, his voice low. "The Syndicate knows we're here. They've already started closing in on this location." Lyra stood up instantly, her face set with determination. "It's time to go. We need to move. Now." Alex stood too, his legs feeling unsteady. The moment he had feared had come. The Syndicate was closing in on them, and there was no time to waste. Lyra gave him a quick glance, her expression hardening. "Stay close. Keep moving, and don't stop." As the three of them rushed toward the exit, Alex's mind buzzed with one thought. The truth was out there, and he was going to do whatever it took to make sure it was revealed. The fight had only just begun. It was a quiet, peaceful evening in the small suburban neighborhood where Alex lived. He had just finished a long day of work and stepped out into his backyard to retrieve the drone he had been testing earlier. The sun was setting, casting a soft orange glow over the trees. As Alex walked toward the back corner of his yard, something strange caught his eye. Behind the fence, lying on the ground, was a figure. At first, Alex thought it was an injured animal, but as he got closer, He saw that it was no animal at all. It was a woman. Her skin was pale, almost metallic, and her body was covered in strange, glowing markings. Her hair shimmered with an otherworldly color, and her eyes, bright, intelligent, yet filled with pain, looked directly at him. Alex froze for a moment. He had never seen anything like this before. The woman was clearly hurt, and from the way she was lying, it looked like she had been there for a while. Her breathing was shallow, and she seemed to be struggling to stay awake. "Please, help," she whispered weakly, her voice barely audible. Alex hesitated, unsure of what to do. He had never been in a situation like this. Was she real? Was this some kind of prank? But the desperation in her eyes convinced him. He quickly crouched down next to her. "Are you okay?" he asked, trying to keep his voice calm. The woman nodded slightly, though it was clear she was in great pain. "I need help. My ship crashed. I'm not from here. Please, don't let them find me." Alex's heart raced. This was no ordinary person. This was someone else. But the fear in her eyes told him that whatever she was not a threat. She needed help. "Who's after you?" Alex asked, glancing around nervously. He didn't know if he was talking about people or something more dangerous, but the situation felt wrong in ways he couldn't explain. "People. They'll come. They'll take me," she whispered, and her eyes fluttered closed for a moment, as if she was losing consciousness. Alex didn't know what to do. His mind was racing, but his instincts kicked in. He couldn't just leave her there. He gently lifted her up, trying to be careful not to cause any more pain. She was surprisingly light, but her body felt oddly rigid, as if it wasn't completely human. With one arm around her, Alex carried her toward his garage, where he could hide her and figure out what to do next. Inside, Alex laid her down on a workbench covered with old tools. The space was dark, but the soft light from his phone illuminated her features. As he examined her, he couldn't shake the feeling that something incredibly important was happening, something bigger than he could understand. "Stay here," he said, trying to sound reassuring as he went inside to get some water. When he returned, she was still unconscious, but her breathing seemed steadier. "Please," she whispered again, just before slipping into a deeper sleep. "Keep my secret. Don't tell anyone." Alex nodded, though he wasn't sure what secret she meant. He knew one thing for certain. His life was about to change forever. The door creaked loudly as the first splintered crack appeared, followed by the distinct sound of something heavy slamming against it. Alex's heart raced. The syndicate agents were almost through. Lyra didn't hesitate. She grabbed Alex's wrist firmly, pulling him towards the hidden doorway at the back of the safe house. The man who had opened the door for them earlier was already ahead, swiftly moving toward the passage. He glanced over his shoulder at them. "Move. They're breaking in." Alex didn't need to be told twice. He followed Lyra as they sprinted down the narrow corridor that led beneath the building. The walls were cold and damp, and the air smelled musty, but there was no time to think about anything other than getting out. Behind them, the sound of the door crashing in echoed through the hall. The agents were inside. Alex could hear their boots hitting the wooden floor, their low voices murmuring, methodical, as they searched the room. He felt the weight of every second pressing down on him. Lyra's pace didn't falter. She moved like she had done this 100 times before, navigating the winding passage with ease. Alex, on the other hand, stumbled a little, trying to keep up. His mind was spinning. Everything was happening so quickly, and he barely had time to process it all. As they reached the end of the tunnel, the man in front of them turned around. "It's not safe here for long. We need to get to the extraction point." Lyra nodded sharply. "How far is it?" 2 miles, the man replied. "But we have to be careful. They know we're here now." Alex felt a pang of fear. 2 miles might as well have been 200. Every step felt like they were being hunted. And yet Lyra was calm. She moved with purpose, each decision made with confidence, as though she had done this many times before. Alex tried to draw strength from her, but the danger felt all too real. "Who are you?" Alex asked, suddenly, unable to keep the question in. The man glanced at him. "A friend. Someone who has been helping Lyra for a long time." "Helping?" Alex repeated. "You mean you've been hiding all this time? From the syndicate?" The man nodded. "We do what we can to protect those who seek the truth. The syndicate doesn't know about all of us. We stay hidden." Lyra glanced back at Alex, her face tense. Not everyone who works with the syndicate is bad. Some are just caught up in it. But others, they know exactly what they're doing. Alex nodded slowly, trying to digest all of this. He had thought he was just helping an alien. But now, it seemed he was tangled in something much bigger. The group moved swiftly, staying low as they approached the exit. Alex's mind was racing. They were so close to freedom, but the danger was still there. The agents could be right on their heels. The thought made him feel vulnerable, exposed. But Lyra was determined, and that gave him a little hope. When they reached the street, Lyra stopped for a moment. "We'll take the alleyway. It's quieter." They moved into the shadows, trying to remain unseen. Every sound, every flicker of light, made Alex's pulse quicken. He couldn't help but glance over his shoulder, expecting to see agents trailing them at any moment. But so far, they were undetected. The man in front of them spoke again, his voice low. "We'll split up at the corner. Lyra and I will go one way. Alex, you'll follow my lead." Alex didn't argue. He was too focused on getting away to question anything. As they turned the corner, Lyra squeezed his arm. "Stay close to him. Don't make any noise." Alex nodded, his heart pounding. He was doing this. He was in this fight now. They reached a rundown building, and the man led them to a door hidden in the shadows. "This way," he whispered. Alex couldn't see much, but he trusted the man. Lyra moved with certainty, and Alex followed, trying to keep pace. They were moving so fast, but his mind kept turning back to the fact that they hadn't lost the syndicate yet. They could still be caught. As they entered a small dark room, the man stopped and turned to face them. "This is it. We'll have a brief moment of safety here, but we need to be ready to move again at any time." Lyra looked at Alex. "You're safe for now, but we have to keep moving. We can't stop." Alex took a deep breath, trying to steady his nerves. He couldn't keep running forever. At some point, they would have to face the syndicate. But until then, he would stand with Lyra, no matter where this path led. Lyra's voice cut through the tension. "We'll get to the truth, Alex. We'll make sure they can't hide it anymore." Alex could only nod, his mind still spinning. The truth. The fight. It was all so much bigger than he ever imagined. But he was in this now, and there was no turning back. Alex and Lyra moved swiftly through the night, the shadows hiding their movements. The streets were empty, the world around them still, but Alex could feel the danger lingering in the air. They had barely escaped the agents, and now they had to stay one step ahead. Every creak of the sidewalk, every flicker of light, made his heart race. He couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. "Are we safe?" Alex whispered, his breath coming in short bursts. Lyra didn't look at him as she led the way, her eyes scanning the street ahead. "For now. But we must be careful. They'll be looking for us everywhere." Alex nodded, but the question still lingered. How far would they have to run before they were truly safe? They walked for what felt like hours, navigating through back alleys and hidden paths. Lyra moved with ease, as if she knew the city better than Alex did, though he had lived here his entire life. She knew where to turn, when to stop, and how to blend into the shadows. After some time, Lyra stopped in front of an old building. It looked abandoned. Its windows were boarded up, and the paint had long since peeled away. The door was heavy, made of dark wood, and it looked out of place in the middle of the street. But Lyra's eyes sparkled with recognition, and without hesitation, she walked up to the door and knocked 3 times, in a specific pattern. Alex watched in confusion. What is this place? Lyra didn't answer immediately. She was too focused on the door. There was a soft click, and the door slowly creaked open. Inside, a dim light flickered. It's a safe house, Lyra explained. A place where my people have hidden before. No one will be able to find us here. Alex followed her inside, feeling a strange mixture of relief and uncertainty. The room was small but well kept. There were shelves full of books, old maps, and strange devices that Alex didn't recognize. A fireplace crackled in the corner, and the warm light made the place feel strangely comforting, like it belonged to someone who had been there for a long time. Before Alex could say anything, a figure stepped out from the shadows. A tall, lean man with sharp features and dark, intense eyes. He wore a simple black jacket, and there was an air of quiet authority about him. "Lyra," the man said, his voice low. "You made it." "I did," she replied, her tone more confident now. "But we're not out of danger yet." The man turned his gaze to Alex, studying him closely. "Who is this?" he asked, his voice cool but not unkind. "This is Alex," Lyra answered. "He's the one who helped me when I crashed." "He's important now." The man raised an eyebrow. "Important?" Lyra nodded. "He knows too much. They'll be looking for him too, if they find out he helped me." Alex felt a shiver run down his spine. The idea that his life was now tied to Lyra's mission, and to the mysterious group hunting her, felt heavy on his shoulders. He had gone from an ordinary man to someone caught in a web much larger than he could have imagined. "What happens now?" Alex asked, his voice quiet but determined. The man looked at Lyra before answering. "Now, we wait. We prepare. We can't stay here forever, but it will give us some time to figure out our next move, and hopefully we'll learn more about who's hunting you." Lyra glanced around the room, her gaze scanning every corner. "We need to find out who's behind this. I don't think the agents are acting alone. Someone is pulling the strings, and they want to silence me." Alex's head was spinning. He couldn't help but feel overwhelmed by everything that had happened in such a short time. Just a few days ago, he was living a normal life, unaware of the existence of aliens, secret organizations, or shadowy agents chasing them. Now, he was in the middle of a situation that could change the course of humanity's future. "We'll get answers," Lyra said, her voice steady despite the uncertainty around them. "I promise." As the hours passed, Alex tried to rest. He couldn't sleep, though. The noise of the fire crackling in the corner, the soft murmur of Lyra and the man discussing their next steps, it all felt surreal. He kept replaying the events in his mind, wondering if they had already crossed a point of no return. But he didn't regret helping Lyra. He couldn't. She was more than just a stranger to him now. She was someone he cared about, someone he was willing to risk everything for. The sound of footsteps outside the safe house suddenly made Alex tense. He froze, his hand instinctively reaching for his phone. But before he could move, the man shot him a look. "Stay quiet," the man ordered, his voice sharp. They all waited in silence, listening as the footsteps grew closer. Alex held his breath, unsure if they had been found or if it was just another trick of his mind. Whatever it was, they couldn't afford to make a sound. The agents were close, and the chase was far from over. The next morning, Alex woke up early, his mind filled with thoughts of the mysterious woman from the night before. He had barely slept, the events replaying in his head over and over. The woman was still in his garage, and he wasn't sure what to do next. Her warning echoed in his mind. "Keep my secret. Don't tell anyone." Alex paced around the house, trying to figure out how he could help her. The previous night, he had carefully checked her injuries, and although there were no signs of serious physical damage, There was something odd about her. Her body had a strange glow, and her skin, though smooth, seemed almost metallic. Alex couldn't stop thinking about how different she looked, yet how fragile she was in that moment. He made a decision. He had to find out more about her, who she was, where she came from, and why she was on Earth. Returning to the garage, Alex gently approached her. She was still lying on the workbench, but now her eyes were open. They glowed faintly, like two bright stars in the dim light. She looked at him with a mixture of exhaustion and gratitude. "How are you feeling?" Alex asked softly, trying not to startle her. She blinked a few times, as if adjusting to the light. "I am better," she said, her voice weak but steady. "I can heal quickly, but I need time to recover fully." Alex nodded, watching her closely. He had so many questions, but he didn't want to overwhelm her. Instead, he asked, "What are you? Where do you come from?" The alien woman hesitated, looking away for a moment. Her gaze seemed distant, as though she was thinking about something very far away. Finally, she spoke, her voice soft but clear. "My name is Lyra," she said, her eyes meeting his once more. "I am not from here. I am from a place far beyond your world. My people, we live among the stars." Alex blinked, trying to process what she was saying. He had never imagined meeting someone from another world. This was beyond anything he could have dreamed. "You're an alien?" he asked, the words coming out of his mouth in a way that sounded almost unreal. Lyra nodded, though there was a sadness in her eyes. "Yes, my people have traveled across galaxies for centuries, exploring, learning. I was sent here to observe your world, to see if humanity was ready for contact. But something went wrong." "What happened?" Alex asked, leaning in slightly. He could tell that her story was important, and he wanted to hear everything. Lyra's expression darkened. "My ship, it was sabotage. Someone did this to me, but I do not know who. I crash-landed here, and now I am stranded. I need to leave before they come for me." Alex felt a chill run down his spine. "Who are they? Who's after you?" Lyra's eyes narrowed, filled with caution. "There are others, dangerous ones. They know I am here, and they will stop at nothing to find me. They are watching, waiting." Alex felt his heart race. He had no idea what kind of danger he was facing, but it was clear that Lyra was not just some lost traveler. She was part of something much bigger, something that involved more than just Earth. Her words only added to the mystery of her presence. "Why didn't you tell me all of this sooner?" Alex asked, confused and a little hurt. He had risked everything to help her, and now it felt like there was so much more at stake. Lyra looked down, her voice barely above a whisper. "I could not trust you at first. I had to be sure. But now, I have no choice. You are the only one who can help me." Alex stared at her, his mind spinning. He had no idea what he had gotten himself into, but he knew one thing for sure. His life would never be the same again. The secret Lyra was keeping was much bigger than he had imagined, and somehow he was now involved in something that could change the fate of the entire world. The shed was small, cramped, and filled with the scent of old wood and rusted tools. Alex and Lyra stood in the dark corner, their breathing shallow and quiet. The only sound was the distant hum of the agents searching his property. Alex's heart was racing, his mind filled with panic, but he knew one thing for sure: they couldn't be caught. Through the small cracks in the wooden walls, Alex could see shadows moving outside. The agents were methodically searching every inch of the yard, their voices low but urgent. The weight of the situation hung heavily in the air. "How long do we need to stay hidden?" Alex whispered, his voice trembling with nervous energy. Lyra's eyes flicked toward the door, her expression tense but calm. "We need to wait until they give up and leave. If they find us, it will be over." Alex nodded, though he wasn't sure how much longer they could remain unnoticed. The shed felt smaller with every passing second. the air thicker with the feeling of danger. It was only a matter of time before the agents would check every corner, and the shed was one of the last places they would look. Suddenly, a noise outside made Alex's heart leap. A heavy footstep. Closer now. The agent was right outside. He could feel Lyra's presence beside him, her strange energy vibrating softly in the air, but her body was still. The way she held herself, calm despite the pressure, amazed him. How did she stay so composed? "I'm scared," Alex admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know if we can get away from them." Lyra's voice was quiet but firm. "You must trust me, Alex. I will protect you." He nodded, though his gut twisted with doubt. How could she protect him against these people? He didn't know the full extent of her powers, and the danger they were facing was bigger than anything he had ever imagined. But he didn't have a choice. He had to trust her. Another footstep. The agent was right next to the shed now, just on the other side of the thin wooden walls. Alex could hear him breathing, his movements deliberate as he scoured the area. Lyra was tense beside him, her eyes closed as if she was focusing on something. Suddenly, the door of the shed creaked slightly. Alex held his breath. It was only a small sound, but it felt like thunder in the silence. The agent outside must have heard it. The handle turned. Without thinking, Lyra moved. Her hand shot out, and she touched the wall of the shed. A soft pulse of light seemed to pass from her fingertips into the wood, and suddenly, the shed felt different. The light was barely visible, but it spread across the walls, filling the air with a strange, calming energy. Alex watched in awe as the agent's footsteps stopped just outside the door. He couldn't see them, but he could feel their eyes on the shed. It was as if time had slowed. Everything around him seemed to blur, as if the world was holding its breath. For a moment, nothing happened. The agent stood there, still. Then, after what felt like an eternity, the footsteps faded away. The agent turned and moved toward the other side of the yard, seemingly satisfied with what he had found, or hadn't found. Alex exhaled a breath he didn't realize he had been holding. That was close. Lyra's eyes flickered open, and a faint smile tugged at the corners of her lips. It worked. They don't know we're here. Alex couldn't believe it. He had been so sure they were caught. But Lyra's power, whatever it was, had protected them. They had escaped. For now. The two of them stayed in the shed, barely moving, waiting for the agents to leave completely. Every second felt like a lifetime. The sound of footsteps faded into the distance, and the yard became quiet again. Alex could feel the weight of the silence pressing on him. Finally, Lyra spoke. "We have to move. They will return soon, and they will be more cautious next time." Alex's stomach turned. "Where do we go now?" "We can't stay here." Lyra nodded, her face serious. "I know a place, a safe house, hidden from their reach. But it's far. We'll have to move quickly." Alex didn't hesitate. He trusted Lyra. She had already proven she would do whatever it took to protect them, and he would follow her wherever she led. "Let's go," he said, his voice steady despite the fear that still gripped him. Together, they slipped out of the shed and into the shadows, moving quickly and quietly. The night was dark, but Alex's trust in Lyra gave him the strength to push forward. They had to keep moving, keep running. There was no turning back now. The chase had begun, and they were in it together. The footsteps outside grew louder, and Alex's heart pounded in his chest. He glanced at Lyra, who was standing perfectly still, her eyes focused on the door. She didn't seem worried, at least, not in the way he expected. Instead, she appeared calm, almost too calm. It was as if she had been through this kind of thing 100 times before. The man beside them didn't say anything, but his expression was serious. He was standing at the far corner of the room, his eyes narrowed, waiting for any sign of movement. Alex's breath was shallow as he looked toward the door, praying that whoever was out there would simply move on. For a long moment, There was only silence. Then, a quiet voice, muffled through the thick walls, reached them. "We know you're in there. Don't make this harder than it needs to be." Alex's stomach twisted. The voice wasn't one of the agents they had escaped from earlier, but it still sounded cold, calculating. He couldn't shake the feeling that these people were dangerous, maybe even more dangerous than the ones who had been chasing them. Lyra stepped forward, her movements smooth and confident. She didn't seem afraid. In fact, she seemed almost prepared. "They'll give up soon," Lyra said quietly, as though she could read Alex's mind. "They always do." Alex looked at her, confused. "How do you know?" She didn't answer right away. Instead, she turned to the man who had opened the door for them. "Are the communications ready?" The man nodded, his face tight with concentration. "Almost. But if they're here, it might be too late." Lyra's expression hardened. "We don't have a choice. We need to make contact now." The room fell into tense silence again. Alex could barely breathe as he listened to the muffled voices outside, the faint sound of footsteps shuffling closer. He had never felt so powerless, so trapped. "What do you mean, make contact?" Alex asked, his voice barely more than a whisper. "What's going on? Who are these people?" Lyra turned to him, her eyes intense. "Alex, you have to understand. This is bigger than just me. There's a group, an organization, that controls what information gets out about extraterrestrial life. They want to keep the truth hidden, keep humanity in the dark." Alex shook his head, trying to make sense of it. But why? Why would they want to hide it? Lyra sighed, her expression softening just slightly. "Because once humans know the truth, everything changes. People will start asking questions. They'll want to know why we're here, what we know. And that's dangerous for the people in charge. They want control." Alex's mind was spinning. He had always believed the world was bigger than what people saw on the surface. But this was beyond anything he had ever imagined. "Who is behind this organization?" Alex asked. "And why do they care about you so much?" Lyra glanced at the man in the corner, who nodded at her to continue. "The organization is called the Syndicate. They've been operating for decades, maybe even longer. They've kept the existence of other civilizations hidden. The only reason they allow some contact with aliens is to control it. And they're doing everything they can to prevent the truth from coming out." Alex's blood ran cold. He had heard of secretive groups, of shadowy organizations, pulling strings behind the scenes, but to learn that something so powerful existed, and that they were actively silencing the truth, was chilling. Lyra stepped closer to Alex, her gaze steady. "The Syndicate doesn't know everything, but they know enough. And they know I'm a threat to their control. That's why they're after me." Alex felt a sense of urgency rising in him. "But if they're that powerful, how do we stop them?" Lyra's expression softened slightly, but there was no fear in her eyes. "We don't stop them. Not yet. But we can expose them. We can make sure the truth gets out, even if it's only in small steps." The door rattled as something heavy slammed against it. Alex's heart jumped in his chest. "It's time," Lyra said firmly. "We have no more time to wait." She motioned for the man to activate something in the corner of the room. There was a soft whirring sound as a hidden device came to life. A small screen appeared on the wall, displaying a map of the world, dotted with blinking lights. Alex stared at it, confused. "This is our plan," Lyra said, her voice calm but urgent. "We're going to reach out to others, other beings who might help us. If we can make contact, we might have a chance to bring the truth to light." Alex didn't fully understand everything that was happening, but one thing was clear. The fight had just begun. The Syndicate had no idea what they were up against, and neither did Alex. The door creaked again, this time more violently. It was only a matter of time before they broke through. "We need to move," the man said, his voice steady. Now, the days passed quietly, But an uneasy feeling lingered in the air around Alex. Lyra was recovering quickly, but every time she mentioned the danger that followed her, Alex couldn't shake the sense that something was wrong. It wasn't just the strange way she spoke of her mission, or the mysterious people after her. There was something deeper, something Alex couldn't quite put his finger on. And then, one evening, his suspicions were confirmed. It was a typical evening, and Alex had just returned home after picking up groceries. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the neighborhood, when something caught his eye: a vehicle parked across the street. At first, he thought it was just another neighbor's car, but something about it felt off. The vehicle was sleek, black, and had no visible markings. It wasn't the kind of car that belonged in his suburban neighborhood. His heart skipped a beat. As Alex watched, he noticed figures in dark clothing getting out of the car. They moved quickly, their faces hidden under hoods. The way they walked, almost in sync, reminded him of soldiers or agents. Alex's gut twisted. These were not ordinary people, and they were definitely not here for a friendly visit. Alex rushed to the window, his heart racing. He could see the figures moving toward his house, their eyes scanning the area as if they knew exactly where to look. It was then that he realized they weren't looking for a person. They were looking for Lyra. Panic flooded through him. He couldn't let them find her. He couldn't let anyone know about her. His first instinct was to go to the garage and warn Lyra, but as he turned to leave, he heard a faint hum, almost like a low, vibrating sound, coming from outside. Looking out the window, he saw the figures were now standing near the fence, their eyes fixed on the garage. They were looking right at it. Alex froze. How could they know? He had been so careful. He had covered every trace, kept her hidden. But these people, whoever they were, seemed to know exactly where to look. Without thinking, Alex grabbed his jacket and rushed to the garage. Lyra was sitting up now, her eyes alert as if she had sensed the danger approaching. "They found us," Alex said, his voice tight with panic. "We have to leave. Now." Lyra's face remained calm, but her eyes betrayed the worry inside her. "I told you they would come. They never stop hunting for me." Alex's mind raced. The garage was the only place where Lyra would be safe, but it was no longer enough. They needed to move. But to where? The question hung in the air like a heavy weight. "They're after you," Alex said, his voice low. "Who are they? What do they want from you?" Lyra stood up, her face serious. "They are agents of a group that monitors extraterrestrial activity on Earth. They know about my mission, and they don't want me, or anyone, telling the humans the truth about the universe." Alex's mind spun. He had never imagined anything like this. He had thought the danger came from her crash, from the threat of other alien factions. But this was something else. These people had been watching Earth long before Lyra arrived, and they weren't going to stop until they silenced her. The garage door creaked as it slowly opened, revealing the dark figures outside. They had found them. "We don't have much time," Lyra said urgently. "You need to get me out of here. Now." Alex's heart pounded in his chest. He could feel the heat rising in his face, his hands shaking. Everything was happening so fast. There was no time for plans, no time to think. Only action. He grabbed Lyra's arm, and together they slipped out the back door into the small garden behind the house. Alex had a small shed back there, one that was mostly used for tools and gardening supplies. It wasn't much, but it was hidden. It was their only chance. They crouched low, trying to stay out of sight. Alex's eyes darted around, searching for any sign of movement. He could hear footsteps approaching the house, the sound growing louder by the second. Lyra moved quietly beside him, her steps almost silent. Suddenly, a sharp voice cut through the quiet night air. "We know you're here. You can't hide from us." Alex's breath caught in his throat. The figures were closing in. He glanced at Lyra, and she gave him a quick nod. Without another word, they moved quickly toward the shed. As they ducked inside and closed the door behind them, Alex's heart pounded in his chest. The sound of footsteps drew closer, but in that small, cramped space, they could only wait. They had to stay hidden. They had to be quiet, and they had to hope they weren't found. Days passed, and the mysterious woman, Lyra, remained hidden in Alex's garage. He had set up a small bed for her with blankets and pillows, but the truth was, she didn't need much rest. Her injuries were healing at an alarming rate, though Alex could still see the faint glow of her skin and the subtle hum of energy that surrounded her. Every time she moved, it was as if there was a strange power within her, something he couldn't quite understand. Despite her rapid recovery, Alex couldn't shake the feeling that her presence in his home had already started to change everything. It wasn't just her otherworldly appearance that fascinated him. It was her story. Every conversation they had opened a door to a new world, one where humans were not alone, and the universe was filled with untold mysteries. And every time Lyra spoke about her mission, Alex found himself more and more intrigued. One evening, as the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the garage, Alex sat down beside her. He had been working on his computer, trying to distract himself from the growing sense of unease, but his thoughts always wandered back to Lyra. "Why did you say humans aren't ready for contact?" Alex asked suddenly, breaking the silence. Lyra had shared so much with him already, but there were still things that didn't add up. Lyra paused for a moment, looking thoughtful. She seemed to weigh her words carefully, as if trying to decide how much she could reveal. "Your species," she began slowly, her voice soft but firm, "has potential, Alex. Incredible potential, but also great danger. You are capable of creating peace, of understanding each other, of advancing far beyond what anyone could imagine. But you are also capable of great destruction. My people, we have seen worlds like yours. They were once thriving, like Earth, but fell apart due to their own actions. And we don't want to see that happen to you." Alex was quiet for a moment. He had heard of humanity's history, wars, conflicts, greed, but hearing it from Lyra, from someone who had witnessed entire civilizations fall, made it feel different. It was sobering. He had never really thought about how the universe might be watching them, judging them, but now it seemed more real than ever. "I don't think we're perfect," Alex said softly, his gaze dropping to the floor. "We make mistakes, a lot of them, but maybe that's what makes us human. We learn, we fight, we fail, but we keep going." Lyra turned her head, her bright eyes locking onto his. For the first time, Alex saw a flicker of something like hope in them. "You're right," she said. "It's what makes you different from other species. You have the ability to learn from your failures and try again. Not all species can do that." Alex nodded, feeling a strange sense of pride. He had always been skeptical of humanity's potential, but hearing Lyra talk about it made him see things differently. Maybe they weren't just a chaotic species after all. Maybe there was something more. As the days continued to pass, their bond grew stronger. Lyra taught Alex about her world, about the stars, the civilizations that existed far beyond Earth, and the way her people viewed the universe. It was like nothing Alex had ever imagined. He began to see the galaxy as a vast, interconnected web, each thread representing a different world, a different species. In return, Alex shared his knowledge of Earth, its cultures, its history, its music and art. Lyra listened intently, fascinated by the things that made humans unique. She was curious about everything, from the way humans built cities to the way they expressed emotions through music. The more she learned, the more she seemed to appreciate humanity's strengths. But in the back of Alex's mind, a question continued to nag at him. If Lyra's mission was to observe humanity, why had she been sent alone? And why had her ship been sabotaged? What if someone, some force, was trying to keep humans from being part of the larger galaxy? Lyra, Alex asked one evening as they sat in the dim light of the garage, "Why were you sent here alone? Was it because humans are dangerous, or because you wanted to learn something specific?" Lyra's expression darkened, and for the first time, she seemed hesitant to speak. "I wasn't meant to be alone," she replied softly. "I was sent with others, a team of researchers. But something happened. Someone didn't want us to succeed. And now, I'm the only one left." Alex felt a cold shiver run down his spine. Something about her words made him uneasy. He couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched, that whatever had happened to Lyra's mission was far more complicated than he had been led to believe. But as Lyra looked at him, her eyes filled with trust, Alex knew one thing for certain. Whatever came next, they would face it together. And that thought, for the first time since their meeting, gave him a strange sense of hope.